Palantir stock crashed. That's what I've been hearing the last couple of days. Well, in reality is if you zoom out, you get exactly this. What crash, right? The stock is still up year to date by quite a lot, still outperforming. And the stock is still up year on year, 300% plus. So to be honest, for those panicking, just zoom out and I guess you won't be panicking anymore. Unless, of course, you bought a ton of shares at $120, then okay, you might be down. And even today, I think we can all agree Palantir stock is very expensive, etc., etc. We know it's been expensive before, it's expensive today. Fine. But what exactly has happened? Is it really just because of that, news that came out with regards to the cuts of the defense budget? Or is it a mix of that plus Alex Karp selling $1.2 billion worth of shares? And even that wasn't really true, right? He didn't sell $1.2 billion worth of shares. So let's discuss all of that. In this video, I also want to, basically take the other side of the story here, especially when it comes to that defense budget cut. So let's talk about all of that in this video. If you enjoy this type of videos, hit all the buttons. Would really appreciate that. If you want to support me even further, do check out the link down in the description and in the pinned comment with the top 10 best stocks to buy now, or go to fool.com/couchinvestor. Thank you very much. So first up, like I said, quick recap. Year to date, Palantir stock is still up 34%. Year over year, Palantir stock is still up over 300%. So yeah, when in doubt, always zoom out a little bit. If we look at the average analyst price target, that surprisingly only sits 13% lower than the price we're at right now after the huge jump in average analyst price target after the last earnings report. Now, of course, we know that a ton of these analysts are just chasing the price action, right? If the stock drops by 40%, I don't know, just an example, I can assure you that even if nothing changes in the business, but the stock price is down, I can assure you that a lot of these analysts will start to downgrade the stock. And the same thing happened on the way up, right? On the way up, same thing happened. So yeah, average analyst price target, it's always nice to know, but I'm not really basing any investment thesis based on that. Now I want to start off with this. Pentagon orders budget revamp to reinvest $50 billion into Trump defense priorities. The Pentagon budget, by the way, is approaching $1 trillion per year. So they're looking for ways to cut spending. It says here, the statement clarifies a memo reported on Wednesday by Reuters from Hegseth, who asked some parts of the military to propose what could be cut as part of a potential 8% spending reduction for them over each of the next 5 years. Again, 8%, approaching $1 trillion per year. It's not really that much, right? I mean, it is a lot, but it's just 8%. So how could this affect Palantir? Well, on the one side, you could say, oh, look, government revenue is still larger than commercial revenue. We're also seeing that segment reaccelerate in 2024. So maybe that's how it could negatively affect Palantir because it still is over 50% of the company's revenue. Okay, but then I would like you to listen to this clip right here.
Separately, the Washington Post reported yesterday that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has now ordered senior Pentagon leaders to develop a plan to slash the defense budget over the next half decade. That, of course, had been expected and anticipated. In truth, I would have thought, given the role of Elon Musk and Doge and everything else, that folks like Palantir and companies like Anduril, which is still private, would actually be great beneficiaries of those cuts because
meaner defense.
You would get leaner and meaner, and you have to actually move towards more software-based defense systems and the like. And so I don't know if it was that so much as I think people looking at the stock.
And the other defense contractors are down, and we'll see. We always want to cut the defense budget until we see what's happening in the rest of the world. Right. And it's like, thank God we didn't cut the defense.
And I would agree with that. I think a company like Palantir, I think a company like Anduril are definitely going to benefit from all of it. Because these are not companies that got, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of contract in the last decade or plus. No, I think these companies are going to benefit from responsible spending. Plus, we're talking here about software, and we kept hearing the same thing again and again from management at Palantir. A year or so ago, Palantir posted this. The total DoD spent on software is less than 1%, but it's America's asymmetric advantage. So, to me, even with all of these spending cuts or whatnot, I do not think that this should hurt a company like Palantir. Plus the fact that software spend is less than 1%, I think that 1% becoming 1.5, 2%, maybe 3% over time is going to benefit a company like Palantir a lot. We've also seen that Pentagon is requesting more than $3 billion for AI joint all-domain command and control initiatives. So there is definitely some momentum when it comes to DoD spending on AI and software. So when you hear all the noise and all the fears out there, oh, look at this, government cuts, defense spending, etc., it's going to hurt a company like Palantir. Actually, I think it's going to do the exact opposite. I would also like to note that in the last 5 days, if you look at Lockheed Martin stock, in the last 5 days, it was actually up 1.5%. If you look at Northrop, that's actually only down 1.2%, and RTX only down close to 2%. So these companies definitely did not take such a big hit from that DoD spending cut news. Quite interesting, no? Now, what could be a larger part of the, let's say, crash, of the minus 18% crash from the top for Palantir, could be this. Palantir CEO Alex Karp's new plan to sell $1.2 billion worth of stock. So of course, panic in the street. Now, what have I been saying for the past, year, maybe year plus? Just because insiders are selling does not mean it's bearish for the stock or the company. Jensen Huang, for example, has sold over $700 million worth of shares in the last year or two. And guess what happened with Nvidia? Kept on going up and up and up. Now, if we look at Palantir executives, what has happened in the last 12 months? By the way, the number of share bought is usually options. So they execute the option and then they sell the shares. But you can see that the net activity in the last 12 months, way more selling than buying, and same goes for the last 3 months. And what has happened in the last 12 months for Palantir stock, despite the executive selling? Stock is up over 300%. So yeah, every time I see this, oh, did you see insiders are selling? It must be bad. But no, it's not always. There are plenty of reasons why insiders sell. Plenty of reasons. Your investment thesis should not be focused on whether an insider is selling or not. Of course, if a business is struggling, has been struggling for a while, if management are a bunch of liars and then they keep on selling shares, then fine. I think you should jump ship as well. But here it's the exact contrary. They keep executing, the company is growing, the stock goes up. So yeah, they're cashing in. They're still people, right? They're cashing in, fine. I think also the accounting officer is leaving or something like that. I think she made $500 million with her shares. Congrats to her. I mean, go live your life. That's all I have to say here. But yes, him selling up to $1.2 billion worth of shares because he did change the 10b5-1 trading plan. So he's allowed to sell up to close to 10 million shares, which depending on when you're watching this, could be worth up to $1.2 billion. Yes, that's true. That could be putting pressure on the stock. The same happened with Amazon, for example, and Amazon, a much bigger company. When Jeff Bezos was selling a lot of shares, that put pressure on the stock. I think the same could be happening with Palantir if he does sell huge chunks each and every time. Yes, that could put some pressure on the stock. And then since the stock is expensive, it could push the stock down even more. That could happen. But again, he can sell up to $1.2 billion. Doesn't mean he's going to sell. Just so we're clear. It's the same with the buybacks, right? It's the same with the buybacks. Oh, why should they buy back shares at XYZ? Well, there is an authorization. They can buy shares today. They can also not buy shares today. They can buy shares a year from now, 2 years from now, depending on the deadline that's been set. So when you read all of these things, it's always important to actually understand the full picture. And so touching back on Palantir, the business, as you can see right here, government revenue continues to accelerate. We've seen a small reacceleration in growth for commercial revenue as well. So there is definitely momentum with the business. Yes, it's true. There was a lot of momentum and maybe some hype from Wall Street after they've completely missed the boat on Palantir. So that has pushed the stock to higher highs. I mean, over 200 and something billion dollars in market cap, super high PE, super high price to sales ratio. We all know that. And so I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised to see the stock take a breather. I'm also pretty certain that most of my viewers that watch these Palantir videos since they went public know very well what is happening right now. Most of you are in the green. Most of you have already secured huge amount of profits. Your initial investment is already probably in your pocket, or maybe you bought a house in the Bahamas or whatnot. For those that are maybe newer here, this is basically it. Just because you see a stock that was flying high take a hit in a week, just because you see all of these scary headlines, does not mean it's the end of the world. And sometimes these things do just that. Do just make sure that the weak hands sell, that things go down because, well, headlines are coming out, algos read the headlines, and that's about it. I think that the defense cuts are not really going to hurt a company like Palantir, should be hurting the bigger ones. But for now, it does seem like the market thinks it's going to be a bigger issue for Palantir and less an issue for the likes of Lockheed Martin. Okay, we'll see. As for Alex Karp selling, executives have been selling before. It's true that $1.2 billion could be a big issue and put some pressure on the stock, but time will tell. And so right now what we're seeing, well, last week was the first big red candle in a while. We're actually sitting just on top of that 20-day moving average. The 50-day one sits a bit lower at $85 or so, and the 200-day one sits even lower at $54. Will we ever reach those prices? I don't know. If we look at the daily, of course, we are now close to that gap that was created after the last earnings report. Not all gaps get filled, most of them do. So do with that information what you want, but all in all, that's basically what has happened with Palantir the company, Palantir the stock in the last couple of days. If you enjoy this type of videos, hit all the buttons, would really appreciate that, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.